All praises are due to Allah, and may his peace and blessings be upon the Prophet Muhammad and on all those who follow the path of righteousness until the last day. Ameen. Before we start, we would like to thank you for your support in our past episodes. However, this will be our final episode here on YouTube. While remembering my early years growing up in Northwest Washington, D.C. came more easily to me, and even still, what I shared with you was not even 2% of my actual life, and I'm sure you all know that. Nevertheless, I believe that we accomplished what we set out to do, and that was to convey my journey from D.C. to Deen. And as the title suggests, this is where that chapter comes to close because I am in the Deen. And as I've tried to reflect on my days, weeks, months, and years as a Muslim, I am realizing how difficult it is to find a rhythm and to stick to it. And seemingly, rather than the episodes growing stronger, I'm beginning to feel as though they are becoming more difficult for me to recall. And not because the journey lacked meaning, but because a life that began 38 years ago as a Muslim cannot truly be captured in a series of episodes the way I once imagined they could. And both me and my team have come to accept that. So, we have decided to end with this episode, and I will share just a couple of incidences that helped to shape me and Ismail's lives as Muslims from our journey together from 1988 up until his passing in 2009. Now remember, as usual, the remainder of this episode will be in audio only, so stay tuned and enjoy it, inshallah ta'ala. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, most merciful. As I talked about our Saudi friends and how close we became as friends, the Saudi embassy, at the request of our friends, gave us a first-class package for Hajj. We paid nothing. MashaAllah. And I ask Allah to accept our Hajj and bless all of those that had an input in our receiving that gift of a lifetime. Ameen. Now, after we returned to the States, we continued life as necessary until we decided that we would like to move to a Muslim country to see if we could see how Islam is practiced in countries where Islam is supposed to be practiced primarily. So, as we search for suggestions from our immigrant friends for countries to migrate to, we found different recommendations, and our final choice was to go to Syria because of what we looked for. Some of the things we looked for were the 4 seasons. We wanted there to be freedom for women so that I could roam about as I wished. We wanted our dollars to stretch at least 6 times over. We wanted affordable rent. We wanted affordable utilities as well as other amenities. We had planned to stay for about 5 years, and we took I think $10,000 with us. But our likes were not as we thought they would be. So we stayed 1.5 years approximately. But the experience was a blessing, and I don't have anything bad to say. MashaAllah. However, before we came back to the States, it was the first week of Ramadan. And we spent that first week in Syria with our friends and our neighbors, iftar with everybody, at the masjids, at friends' houses, at our house with friends. It was a beautiful experience, mashallah. Then we had decided to go to Turkey to spend the second week of Ramadan. We did not find any friends, no Muslims in the masjids, no iftar in the masjids, no iftar in the hotel we stayed at, no friends. We had to eat all of our iftars and sahurs in restaurants that we had to pay for as patrons. But mashallah, we can't complain. It was not a good place for us to stay because of a few things. I won't say bad things about them because I shouldn't. But it was hard to navigate because we did not speak their language. Neither did any of them speak our language. But we did get to visit the Blue Mosque and some other places, and those experiences were awesome, mashallah. Nevertheless, we decided to leave after the second week in Turkey to go to Egypt. Okay? We arrived in Egypt and stayed in our hotel. We did a lot of sightseeing during the day. And we also went to the pyramids, where Ismail and I rode a camel. Ismail rode around the grounds on a horse. And my camel was led by a young man, a young Muslim brother from Egypt. And the brother took a liking to us because we were Americans. And he invited us to his house for iftar that night. However, because Ismail and me did not fully understand the invite, we almost missed the iftar because we thought that the invite was for the next day, but it was intended for that day. So when we got back to our hotel after the camel ride and the horse ride around the pyramids, the desk clerk told us that we had had a visitor, and we were wondering who could be coming to visit us. But when we called the number that was left, it was the young man that guided us during our camel and horse ride around the pyramids. And he said that we were meant to come to his house that day. So he took a taxi to our hotel, and we went with him to his house, his home, rather, I'll say home. As we found out things about him, he was about 17 years of age. His mother had him when she was about 10 or 11 years old. He had 4 or 5 other siblings. His father traveled for his job, so he was not at home when we visited his home for iftar that day. Their house was made from mud, the floor was dirt, and the iftar that was the main meal was a goat that greeted us when we reached the house. These were some really, really humble people. They did not have much of anything, but they seemed to us to have really good hearts of gold. Now, once dinner was finished and the time for iftar came, we all broke our fast. We prayed Maghrib together, prayed our sunnahs, and we ate. We ate. Ismail offered them some money, but they refused to accept it. The mother would not accept it. the younger siblings would not accept it. So Ismail and me got together and we plotted to put all of the monies that we had on us together and put it in a place where they would find it. So once we left and got to our hotel, Ismail called the brother and told them where we had left the money. And that was the end of our meeting with them. It was a most beautiful, beautiful, beautiful day. That was the best iftar I have ever had because of the circumstances. MashaAllah. So, after that week had passed, we headed back to the States to spend the last week of Ramadan and Eid at home. MashaAllah. Then, sometimes afterwards, 9/11 happened. I don't have anything to say about it except that it happened. And seemingly everything and everybody changed afterwards. Nevertheless, Ismail and me got another gift to make Hajj for free a couple of years later. And that was also a beautiful blessing from Allah. Both of our Hajjs were gifts and we did not have to pay anything for them. Even though we had our own money to pay for our Hajj, to pay for our hotel stay and all. But we are truly grateful to Allah that they came to us as gifts. Now, sometimes after that, Ismail decided to retire and to move to Egypt to stretch his savings and pension. And I would follow him after my retirement came, inshallah ta'ala. He went first to get home set up and get situated so that when I retired and came, things would already be stabled, inshallah. But he and I would visit each other every 3 or 4 months. Either I would go to Egypt on my vacation or Ismail would come here and stay during his vacation time. Now, in 2008, I retired from my job. Ismail came back to the States to help me move to Egypt. After we arrived and I got settled in Egypt, we went to Saudi Arabia for 3 weeks to visit our friends. And they, as usual, treated us like royalty. MashaAllah. When we got back to Egypt after our visit, we started decorating our new home. We also spent an Eid on a cruise ship down the Nile for 3 days with some other American Muslims that we knew from the States. Ismail took sick during the cruise, and a few weeks later, after that, he really got sick and had to be taken to the hospital in Egypt. The next 2 or 3 days after he was released from the hospital in April, we went back to the States and he was hospitalized there. And later, the next month, he was diagnosed with cancer in May 2009. Ismail passed away in July of 2009. May God have mercy on him and all of the believers that have returned to Allah. Ameen. But before Ismail died, when he found that he had cancer, he said to me, and this is a quote that I'll never forget verbatim, "At least I know how I am going to die. And I cannot complain because God has been good to me all my life." Close quotes. Then he advised me, "Jackie, prepare yourself, okay? because you're going to die one day too. And I was so enlightened by that advice that it forced me to do some soul searching and searching for beneficial knowledge, because I was afraid of things like death and dying and sickness and all of those things. I was so afraid. And indeed, I started my journey of searching for beneficial knowledge and such. And I found a lot of sisters and brothers that I asked to help me, to show me how to learn deeper than I was learning, deeper in subjects that I had not touched bases on. And I won't go into any details about Ismail's death, and I don't feel I need to do that. But, when people pass away, they pass away. It's, you let them rest, however, whatever. So here I am in 2026, 17 years after Ismail passed. I have been consistently involved in a number of things for the sake of trying to increase my Islamic knowledge and to get closer to Allah in ways that I can. And I will continue that until I die. First, until I'm not able to continue seeking knowledge. And my dear listeners, I'm going to stop here, okay? Because the From DC to Deen team will continue this podcast journey by way of reels on the social mediums that we are already on. So please stop by and check us out. We don't want to lose you, but we want to be more visible, more often, and in dawah mode, inshallah. And we're thanking you for your support, and we will see you on the next platform, inshallah. Remember, when you meet us on the next platform, subscribe so that you will not miss a posting, inshallah. Until then, peace.